Hello, gals and guys. It's your host, Phil Larson, and this is your Motivational High Five on Acknowledgment. Let's do this. Welcome to episode 77, your Motivational High Five on Acknowledgment. I don't know about you, but I fear what's unknown. You know, especially medically. It's not necessarily a healthy thing for me. But for instance, I inherited from my grandfather high blood pressure. And so I've been taking medication for high blood pressure since graduating college. And at one point, I had medication that stopped working, but I didn't know that at the time. What I had were these symptoms, these kind of weird symptoms, and some of them were like these prickly feeling on all of my limbs. I just felt exhausted, and I felt really down and depressed. I wasn't sleeping well. I felt off, and I couldn't describe it. And so my mind really just went wild, and I thought that I was going to die. And so, instead of going to see a doctor, I would have rather just stayed home and done nothing about it. Because acknowledging it means that I was just going to go find out bad news and I was just going to die. And my wife was like, no, we need to go get answers. And so refusing to acknowledge was then to give into my fears of the unknown, rather than just acknowledging and knowing the possible truths, or maybe something that I haven't even thought of, because turns out I'm not an expert. Refusing to acknowledge and just choosing to suppress that until the fear goes away, that never works, because fear just compounds on itself, and the truth wants to be set free. And, you know, this happens because we find out bad things are bad by bad things happening, whether you want them to or not. So if I did have something really, really wrong with me that was going to kill me, I was going to find out when the symptoms got worse and worse anyway. But what acknowledgement does, it sets the mind free by accepting what already is reality. And the truth is, reality often lies outside of our control. And so that kind of reality, our defense mechanism can often be that we try to gain some sort of sense of control by refusing acknowledgement of it, or trying to live outside of it. You know, think of someone refusing treatment of something that's treatable, or pushing away the pain of their child passing away, or someone expressing desire for a deeper relationship with someone else who responds with reasons why they are wrong, instead of saying, I'm sorry, refusing to acknowledge the pain. Their lack of acknowledgement indicates a refusal of reality, or a desire to live outside of it in their own fantasy. You know, and even like religious beliefs, or I'm just choosing to trust God, or I can pray that away, can be a refusal of reality if we are choosing to use that as a way to avoid any sort of deep, hurtful, like hard feelings in the matter, things that may cause some pain to acknowledge. And I know this because I've done that. If you've practiced a lot of meditation, then you already know this. But, you know, good meditation seeks kind of a blank canvas of the mind. But if certain thoughts or feelings come into play, which they are, because you're a complicated human being with an advanced and really complicated brain, if certain feelings and thoughts come in your mind, it is good meditation practice to not shove those away, because then they will often just come back stronger or become more distracting. A good meditation practice is to what? Is to acknowledge those things. Kind of like a cloud floating in, and hold it for a second. See that it's there. Point to it. It's there. And what allows you to do is to let go of that cloud and watch it float away better, because you acknowledge that it was present. When we tune in, we choose to acknowledge reality. And in doing so, we derive a state of ourselves. We tune into how are we, our state. And then that allows us to address anything that needs to be addressed. And acknowledgement is a simple first step towards action. If I went about my entire day fairly normally, but choosing to refuse to acknowledge one thing, and this one thing being that, I have a deep cut that occurred somewhere and I'm bleeding out. If I refuse to acknowledge such a serious matter, well, it's a matter of life and death. But acknowledging, there's a cut, and take this figuratively, it's the first step towards healing. Acknowledgement leads to action, and not even that, I have a cut, but then tuning in, acknowledging it, and to the extent at which I have been cut. Again, then we derive a state of ourselves. Does this cut need a Band-Aid, or does this cut need stitches? In a deep and wide cut that needs stitches, a Band-Aid won't fully address it, and you will still be hurt in the end. Proper acknowledgement is choosing to see reality for what it is. And this is the point ultimately where we choose ourselves. We choose life because we choose that we want the best for ourselves. And a little bit of self-promotion here, but it applies to this message, so hang with me for a second. But I'm a songwriter, and so I just launched my dance pop project, and I'm just going to release singles, and sometimes they're going to feature me singing and sometimes feature other people. But the first song is called Hope is in the Falling Down, and this is exactly what it is, that when we choose to live right there in what has fallen down, we allow ourselves to feel that pain. That is when we find the hope. That is when we find what is the redemption. You hit your low point. Okay, you've bottomed out. Now you have something to push up from. And guess what? You're only going up from here. First step, acknowledging it. If you're interested in listening to that song, the project is called Future Kind, spelled with a PH, a little nod to my name, Phil. So Future Kind, one word with a PH, and the song is called Hope is in the Falling Down. And it is everywhere. You can buy it or stream it anywhere. So here we are at the end of this short episode, and what we do at the end of every episode is choose to acknowledge ourselves and acknowledge what we are learning. And how we choose to do that is engage in the science of neuroplasticity. We find a reflection of ourselves in the mirror. And today, as you do that, go ahead and give yourself a little nod. Like, hey, I acknowledge you. I see you. And it feels a little weird because it is you, but there is a way to go through life and not see yourself. Refuse to acknowledge, the complex, intricate, passionate person that you are. And we are choosing to lean into that reality and acknowledge the hard parts and hope for the healing of those hard parts and the redemption of that, acknowledging all that is you. As you look into yourself today and you notice your reflection, will you just breathe here and say this to yourself when you find the time? Today, I choose to acknowledge the truth instead of fearing the unknown. And fearing the unknown is okay. It's part of your reality. But choosing that to live there instead of acknowledging what is true, that's when it becomes a defensive mechanism. That is when it becomes an out to engaging and entering in and noticing, acknowledging what is true. And that is a choice. It's maybe a harder choice than fearing the unknown. That's kind of a default, easy choice, I think. In my wife's office at the church she works, she has this quote on the wall that says, instead of fearing the unknown, choose curiosity. And I love that. I think the first step towards curiosity is acknowledging that we are fearful, that we don't know this thing that is unknown. That's acknowledgement. Let it lead you towards action, towards curiosity. How much more an exciting way to approach life is that? Yeah, there's lots of things to be afraid of. What if we were curious as to why we were afraid, as to why things made people afraid? Curious at, well, maybe I don't have it all together. Let's figure this out. Acknowledgement of your limited self, that you are not an expert, you don't know it all, and that's okay. Acknowledgement is step one. It starts with you.